All right, well, welcome back to another episode of the YouSchool podcast. I'm Scott Schimmel. Today, what we're talking about is in many ways trying to reverse engineer, as we think about kids, reverse engineer the kind of people that we hope they become. And this is one of the most core exercises that we do with educators and parents, is to actually take a few minutes, more than a few minutes, to imagine and describe who you hope your kid or kids or students or athletes are like when they get older. Pick an age, 25, 30, 35. Pick maybe a life stage, maybe they're parents, they have a job, they're married, kind of the traditional, or untraditional route that you imagine that they take. And then to describe the kind of characteristics that they have, attributes. What is it like to be around them? What's it like to be them? What would they say? How would they talk? How would they think? How would they handle money? What kind of neighbor and friend would they be? All those kinds of three-dimensional ways, because I think generally we all hold this sense, this notion. We, of course, want our kids to be happy and healthy and safe and well-adjusted and self-sufficient. But the exercise that we found to be extremely useful is to go many steps beyond that to describe who you hope they are. And if you can get some clarity, and it takes some time, but you can get clarity on that, then we start reverse engineering that. If you have a kid that's 10 or 15 or 2 or 21, here's the question on this episode. If you hope they become like those things, that kind of person, that kind of friend, that kind of employee, leader, parent, spouse, person at your family, then the question is, and this episode is going to try to answer, what experiences do they need in order to become that? Because you don't just wake up one day kind. You don't just wake up one day having a servant's heart. You don't wake up one day being a good friend. Those are experiences that you learn and grow through. And the natural result of serving, for example, is a servant's heart. Typically, that's more likely than not going to happen. So 7 essential experiences every kid needs. And I would encourage you to listen to this or watch this, to think about this, consider this on 2 levels. One would be your own experiences as you grew up, the formative ones that shaped you into who you are today. And then the second, as the adult, the parent, the teacher, the coach, to be thinking about what can you do to create or curate experiences for your kids or students that would really benefit them. And it's not just experiences, of course, it's learning from experiences, debriefing, reflecting on, that really make an impact. The first one we're going to talk about is work. I'm so happy and proud. My 16-year-old son now has 2 jobs, a second job. He just got a job, and what he's learning and navigating through, one hand, he's doing childcare at a church. I asked him maybe 3 or 4 shifts into his job months ago, how was it tonight? I picked him up and he said, boring. And we were talking about that. And one of the insights he got, as it was quote unquote boring work, was he had been, I think, kind of struggling to figure out where's his place as a student and college. What role does college play for him in his future? And we just had this brief conversation about how without a college degree, it can limit your opportunities for work, and especially work that, let's say, is boring, tedious, monotonous, not in your sweet spot. Those are, the pie chart is much bigger for those kinds of jobs without a college degree, rather than if you had one. It creates more opportunities for you to do work that that matters. And we had this great conversation about work for me that makes me come alive and not only provides for a family, but all those things. So how do you do this? One, I think you set an expectation if you're a parent for your kids, that they do get a job, and that job, given the constraints of who they are and the time that they have, if they're involved and doing activities or sports or super rigorous academic calendar, there's still quite a bit of margin that I found for them to get work. And I'm so happy for my son because he's the oldest of 3, and he's setting this pace for our other 2 kids, that it's normal when you're 16 to start having a job. And work has led for him to money, to income, to buying things, to being mature and making wise choices with sometimes how he spends his money. Um, and I'm so happy that he's getting these experiences where his other job, he just commented that a lot of the kids don't, the other people in his job, they slack off. And so that's similar kind of, what kind of employee are you going to be? And I don't know. I can't control that, but I can certainly help him reflect on that and think about it and challenge him. So work experience is a really big, important part at a young age to, I know looking back in my life, if it wasn't for the jobs I had, I don't think I would have been a hard worker that I am now. It was because I was in a job when I was 17 and I spent months just mailing it in. And it occurred to me one day, it's really, really boring like that. It is it's tedious. It's awful to go to a job and not try. It's actually worse. So I had this experiment when I was 17. What if I lean into this and did the best I could just for a day? I think I then expanded it to a week. And I'd say now, I don't know, that's like 25 years later, that experiment has been pretty interesting. I enjoy work the more I'm engaged. Second one, I mentioned this earlier. I hope that my kids grow up with a servant heart and seeing their place in that they have a role inside of a community, and that a part of living life well is serving others. And this one's challenging for me because I don't think I've modeled this very well. And I don't think I've led very well in taking so if I want that to be true, and yet I don't ever give them the experiences, or rarely, once a year or twice a year, infrequently give them an experience of service, then why would I expect that they might become servants and service oriented, but they probably won't. So this one's very challenging for me right now. And I'm trying to figure out, what does it look like for us as parents to make sure that our kids are serving? Third, crossing cultures. This became really important to me more in college because I chose to go, and the word I've used and heard used is displaced, intentionally displace myself, go to, on a very simple level, restaurants or neighborhoods, or hang out with friends that come from a different culture than me. And the inevitability is it will make you feel uncomfortable. You'll feel out of place. It might be stressful. You might see things come up inside you like critique, contempt, comparison, judgmental, like, and actually to do that in a context of being able to debrief and reflect on that, it's incredibly helpful, because I hope that my kids can navigate well in a complex world. I hope my kids can see and learn from other cultures and find richness and texture in life in cultures that are outside of their own kind of native culture. And so how do we model that as parents, as adults? I remember having an exercise, an assignment in a class in college. We had to do this. We had to go to restaurants and other faith expressions, um, um, Buddhist, Muslim, Catholic, Protestant, Christian. We had to go to these different experiences and then write about them. It was incredibly fascinating to be forced to do that and to have my eyes opened and to find appreciation, great appreciation, and friendship. Fourth, experiences of independence. I've mentioned this before in previous episodes, but having my son travel by himself. My wife and I frequently talk about this summer that we spent studying abroad together in college in Florence, Italy, and the independence that brought, the being in charge, autonomy, self-sufficiency. This is pre kind of cell phones and internet. So to figure out how to get from here to there, take care of yourself and laundry and exchanging money, and those experiences will grow you up. So if you've got this imagination that your kids are self-sufficient, autonomous, and are responsible, take care of their lives, they have to have experiences then of being independent. Fifth, just a couple more. I believe that every kid needs to have experiences of adventure. And it's through adventure that kids get to know and learn about themselves. They get to reflect on who they are and who they're not. They get to feel like they're coming alive. I think confidence is built through adventure. Life, joy, meaning. stories to share, all these. So how do we curate and give permission, or maybe even invite them on adventures and plan it for them? I think it's incredibly important. 6, success. I think, and I've talked about this in other episodes I'll link to, every kid needs to have experiences that they have something to bring to the table. They have value, they can contribute, and that other adults will look at them and say, wow, that's impressive. You are able to do something. That could be giving a presentation, it could be solving a problem, it can be managing a complex relationship. There's lots of lenses to look at with our kids to see how they are being successful at an adult level. But oftentimes we don't give them that opportunity because the opportunity in the last one is ripe. If we want to set them up for success, they might experience failure. And I think every kid needs to have multiple experiences of failure to learn about themselves, to learn how to process who they really are, the true identity, not a false identity. I believe that failure teaches you how to be resilient. It refines what really matters to you, and it can help you find like an internal engine, a drive deep down to continue to push forward and grow and change. So I know I'm missing some. This is the start. The 7: work, service, crossing cultures, independence, adventure, success, and failure. These essential experiences that every kid needs. What am I missing? What would you add to? What are the experiences that you've had that really shaped you? And let's make this a part of the conversation. How do we design these moments, these experiences for kids that can change them and help them grow up? Hey, thanks for joining in on the YouSchool podcast. We'd love to share with you the resources available on our website at theyouschool.com. Not just articles, ebooks, worksheets, and other podcast episodes, but specifically, you should know about a free course we have available called the Real Me course. It's digital, it's interactive, and it'll guide you to get clearer about who you are and the great story you could tell with your life. So go register for a free account and get started on the Real Me course today at theyouschool.com. That's theyouschool.com.